Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence, and today I want to talk a little bit about binaries. In that, is there a objective truth? Now, I've kind of gone my whole life believing that there is an objective truth. I've generally believed that what we know is definitive and what we don't know is something that we are yet to discover, right? Whether it be scientific discoveries that are yet to be made or advancements in philosophy that are yet to be figured out, I generally believe that there is an objective truth and it's just a case of getting there. And that's what I've generally believed. And recently, in fact just now, I've had quite a long discussion with a bloke that I met in Liverpool Street. A really nice guy. We met up for a coffee a few hours ago, and he's just gone, and I kind of just wanted to go over sort of what I think about it all. What do I think about the nature of binaries, right? Because something that was quite important that was being made was the definition of infinity. Not necessarily the definition, but say, have you ever heard that idea that there is turtles all the way down? It's essentially saying, right, the answer to the universe. Where did the universe begin? The Big Bang happened. Where did the Big Bang come from? We don't necessarily know, but let's say that it's the theory of a recurring universe, where one universe spreads into the next, right? Well, what caused the last universe to exist? Don't know, again, but say we figure that out. Or what caused the universe before that, and the universe before that, and the universe before that. And eventually you must get to a point where we know, we get to the bottom of it. We get to the bottom of the turtles, right? And that's where the saying it's turtles all the way down comes from. Essentially, it's tackling the concept of infinity, right? So if it's turtles all the way down, then it's turtles all the way down, right? And in that, it kind of makes the idea of continually digging down from turtle to turtle a little bit pointless, right? Because if it's turtles all the way down, then what's the point? I don't necessarily believe that it is turtles all the way down. I believe that it's turtles a long way down, so unfathomably far down that we couldn't possibly comprehend it. Right? For instance, the Graham's number, right, is a theoretical number. I think it's the largest number that actually has a practical use. I think it's the number of potential physical states that the universe can be in. I might be wrong on that, but essentially the number can be explained as such, right? So picture every single atom that there is in the universe, right? So remember that just composing me alone, there are trillions upon trillions upon trillions of atoms, right? And then the floor that I'm on, right? Look how large it is. Look how expansive it is. Look at the building behind me, right? Think of every single atom that makes up every single one of these buildings across all of London, and then across all of the ground, making up all of planet Earth, the sun, all the planets in the solar system, the galaxy, every single atom in the universe, right? Now picture each one of those as a digit, right? So atom number 1 is 1. Atom number 2 is 10. Atom number 3 is 100. Atom number 4 is 1,000, and so on and so forth, right? The number of digits, just to explain this number, right? The number of numbers you would need to quantify this Graham's number is so large that you would need to use up, using that system of 1, 10, 100, 1,000, you would need every single atom in the universe a Graham's number of times. That's how large Graham's number is, right? Now, this isn't necessarily about the scientific side of things or the mathematical side of things, because I'm not an expert in any of that, and I've probably got a lot of details wrong, and any details that I have gotten wrong, I'd love to hear about in the comments below. But what I find really interesting about the nature of this, not absolute infinity, but what we can call near infinity, right? It's so unfathomably large, right? That if I were to walk the distance, say if I was to walk Graham's number of miles, right? Let's say I had infinity time to live, right? If I walked continuously in a straight line for Graham's number of miles, I would eventually reach a destination, right? But for how long I would be walking, it would feel infinite. Even just 0.0001% of that journey is still years and years of just straight walking. Entire universes would live and die and be reborn in the time it would take for me to walk Graham's number. in fact, a multitude of universes, right? We're talking like not even quadrillions of years. We're talking like, so quadrillion is 4, right? Quad, right? Let's say 100, Google number, right? We're talking about things that are so unfathomably large that we can't even get to the bottom of it, right? And that's what I believe in terms of turtles all the way down, right? I do believe that there is a stop to the turtles. I do believe that the turtles end at a certain point. However, for all intents and purposes, it might as well be infinite, right? So we'll call it practical infinity. We'll call it infinity with an asterisk. It might as well be infinity, right? I mean, how many people are there on planet Earth? Well, we know there's 8 billion, but in terms of your day-to-day going out and meeting them, right? You've probably met a few thousand people in your life. I've met a few thousand people in my life, right? We're still not even covering 0.00001% of all the population of Earth, right? Say you go to a big football game, right? And there's 100,000 people there, right? 10 million, 100, 10 million, 1,000, 100 million, 10,000, 1 billion, right? So you would need somewhere in the realm of about 70,000 football stadiums that are that massive to encapsulate all of humanity, right? And I doubt there's that many football stadiums in the world, right? And I just find this so interesting because something that we were talking about is the nature of objective truth, right? And I personally believe in an objective truth, and the person that I was having this very fruitful discussion with doesn't believe in objective truth, right? And we had a really good dialogue, exchange of ideas from that, right? And he certainly won me over in certain ways, right? For instance, the nature of binaries, right? I tend to see the world in binaries, right? Whereas this person that I'm talking about doesn't see the world in binaries. And I would say that my way of quantifying what he said is, even though it's not binaries in that sort of sense, it's kind of like, you know how an atom, right, is mostly infinite, is mostly empty space. It's mostly air, right? So a way that is a good way of explaining just how empty an atom is imagine in the Royal Albert Hall, you have a fist, right? Now that's your nucleus, that's your protons and your neutrons, and then there's a fly buzzing around it, right? That's just how empty everything is, right? But look around us, it doesn't seem empty. I'm standing on this, right? I'm not even on the ground floor. I'm actually about 3 floors up, right? So clearly it's solid, right? And even if I get right up close to it, it still looks pretty solid to me, right? Even if I got a microscope, it would still look solid, right? We have to go so far down with an electron microscope to even begin to see the empty space. But that's not to say that the empty space is not there, right? I would argue that binaries perhaps do exist, but there are so many of them, perhaps infinitely more than Graham's number of binaries in various different aspects, right? For instance, I'm either alive or I am dead, right? That's a binary. However, look at someone maybe in a coma, or maybe take moss, right? Is moss alive? Is it alive now that I've plucked it off of that? I don't know. Is that leaf there? Is that alive? Who am I to say or not to say, right? Are these bricks alive? I think at this point we would start to agree, no, the bricks are not alive. However, we can see that as a binary, right? This is just an example of a binary, right? There's obviously at some point, right, there is the least alive thing and there is the most unalive thing, right? So take say a single-celled organism, right? Say the biogenesis, right, that started all life on planet Earth, right? It had to have come from somewhere, and the biogenesis is a particularly good theory for explaining where life on Earth came from, right? And you can argue maybe life on Earth came from a comet somewhere that brought down the chemicals that allowed a single-celled organism to come from. But then you have to go, well, where did the life come from on that comet, right? Where is the absolute origin, right? We can't actually pinpoint it. It must have happened at some point because we are here. So there is an objective truth in that it is a binary, but it's such a wide binary, right? And there's so many binaries within it that are all so far apart, just like the emptiness of the atom, right? That for all we see, and for all intents and purposes, it isn't binary, it's a spectrum. What is a spectrum other than a collection of binaries, a near infinite series of connections, right? What's a good binary, right? What's a good spectrum? Let's say the autism spectrum, right? So you're not autistic or you're extremely autistic, and in between there are all different number of people along the way, right? From all different walks of life. Some people are high functioning autistic, some people are low functioning autistic, right? Say it is a spectrum, right? This is the spectrum, right? Non-autistic and very autistic, right? And all of this space in between is the spectrum, right? So what is the spectrum? I would argue that the spectrum is a colossal number of binaries within that space. Say someone, right? Say this is the spectrum, right? Say someone is about here on the spectrum, right? Between there, they're about there, right? I would argue that they're somewhere in a binary. They are either that level of autistic or they are not. They are maybe this level of autistic or this level of autistic. And I know this sounds like a very autistic thing to say, but where I'm getting at with this is that I do think that there is a nature of objective truth, right? It's just that it's so vast that it might as well not exist for our practical purposes, right? I mean, for instance, the scientific endeavor of trying to find the answers to all the questions we want to know. Where do we come from, right? Where did the universe come from? How are stars formed? All of this sort of stuff, right? One question leads to another question, right? And every sort of scientific theory that we've got that we're trying to answer will only open up more avenues of questions, and on and on and on. Do you think that in 10,000 years that we will have solved science? Absolutely not. We will still have many, many directions left to go and many questions left to answer. Say, in 1 trillion years, right? A red dwarf star tends to live for about 1 trillion years. We believe, I mean, the universe isn't 1 trillion years old, but we believe that, and we have scientific evidence to suggest that a red dwarf star would live for about 1 trillion years. So let's say that Earth is, or say that humanity moves to a planet that's orbiting a red dwarf and we somehow manage to make it inhabitable, right? And let's say 1 trillion years in the future, right? We're still on the quest for knowledge, right? This quest might feel like it's never ending, right? But I do believe that there is an end to it. But then the question comes, do you want to reach that ending? What would the world be like if there were no stones left to turn? What would the world be like if there was no new music to compose? What would the world be like if there was nothing left to discover? People like to say that the world feels quite small now, right? And I definitely agree with them. I mean, take, say, 1,000 years ago, right? Albion, right? Britain, right? Would have seemed absolutely massive because we didn't have cars. We used horses and horseback to get from A to B, right? France would have seemed so much further away than it does now. I could go to France now on a day trip, right? I could go down to New Haven and I could get a ferry to Dieppe, right? And then I could come back the same day. It'd be a bit of a ball ache, it'd be a lot of traveling, but I could do it. 1,000 years ago, absolutely not, right? I could fly to New York in 8-9 hours, right? Call it maybe 15 hours with all the travel to the airport and waiting in the airport and all that sort of stuff. So it's a long time. But 1,000 years ago, we didn't even know that New York was there. Well, we didn't know that the Americas were there. We had no function of it. And yet the world still seems so much larger, right? The world is, and I don't just mean the world in terms of planet Earth, I mean everything that there is to discover, right? It's sort of like layers. It's like leveling up in a video game. Say you play like Skyrim or something like that and you progress in the game, right? You level up, right? You're on level 1 and a Minotaur fucking just murks you instantly, right? You're on level 1, right? You're dead, right? As you level up, right? Suddenly the Minotaurs are quite easy to deal with, but then you got the dragons and then they're much harder to deal with, right? Say at the beginning of the game, you might just be able to take down a dragon, one dragon, but then by the end of the game, you can take down loads of dragons individually, right? It's kind of like that with nature and reality. Not literally like a video game, of course, but in terms of the nature of discovery leads to new discoveries. And I do believe that's a finite equation. I do believe that there is an end to discovery. But do I want us to reach that end? No. Not particularly. I don't necessarily think that everything that's out here, right, is all there is, right? And I definitely don't believe that this is all that we can be. And I think that what we should do is, as I was having this conversation with this gentleman, he basically was more in favour of following the heart, the individual ego. And I think that's not like in an individualistic sense, but like the who you are, going along and going by what feels right, because there's more to this, right? Possibly in a spirituality sort of context, possibly in a philosophical context, whatever context it is that you might want to whatever framework it is you want to use for this, you can certainly get some answers out of it that will comfort you, right? And that's essentially what following your heart is, rather than trying to follow the brain, trying to logic your way out of issues, trying to, for instance, say you've got a thought loop, right? The example we were using was, I'm fat, therefore I'm sad, therefore I eat, therefore I'm fat, right? Now I said, well, the best way of tackling this is to start with the eating part. That's the easiest part to get at. If we stop eating, right, it will make us feel better in the immediate long run, because we'll be on a journey to getting somewhere. We'll get less fat as time goes on, right? We certainly can't tackle this issue, this trinary thing of fat, sad, and eating by tackling the fat without tackling the eating, right? But what he would have argued is this whole framework can be dissolved in its entirety. And I think that's a really beautiful way of putting things. And he's certainly given me a lot of insight that I wish to take into the new year. And that's why I thought I'd make this video. Just to give you sort of a little sort of nugget of wisdom that this man gave me. He's making these little film vignettes of things that he sees where it's like something draws him to make something, and I really resonated with that. And I hope to do a collaboration with him at some point. I'm not going to name who he is, because right now, he doesn't know I'm making this video, so he might not necessarily like this. But that's why I'm sort of keeping it a little bit vague and just talking about the concepts. And I really enjoyed our chat, and I hope to have another chat with him again soon. And with all of yous, I hope to have another chat with you some point soon. And I think it's good to have this, because I know I've not made a video in a wee while. And having not made a video in a wee while, it's sort of given me insight. It's given me insight, and it's given me new avenues to tackle the issues of the world with a new lens. So thank you very much for watching this video, everybody. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree with this? Do you disagree with this? Do you have anything to add? Let me know. I'd really be interested to find out. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Take care, and bye-bye.